there are some opportunities coming through your life that you might regret if you didn't grasp them or take them. And I think this was one of them.
You can be prepared, as you said. You have to, expect, volatile scenarios. But even though if you are prepared, there's still a lot of work to be done.
I think that's why I find this industry so fascinating.
How early did you know that you wanted a career in business?
I don't think I actually really knew that I was going into business. When I started studying, I really didn't know what direction I wanted to go in. And I had heard quite a lot of good things about the Norwegian School of Economics in Bergen, not necessarily because of the subject matters, but more the student life and maybe the night life. So actually, that was what drew me to Bergen, because I'm from Trondheim in Norway. Which also is a big student city, but I sort of wanted to go somewhere else and study and move away from the parents and all that. So that actually was maybe the start of interest for business when I started studying in Bergen and started learning more about what it's all about.
Maybe therefore it was like a natural segue over to working at Accenture at the start, because you get like a broad exposure to a lot of different industries. It seems like a good route to take if you want to explore different options. Was that also the case at your end? That sound like a great starting place?
Yeah, I think you're right, Christopher. One of the benefits I saw by studying in Bergen at the Norwegian School of Economics was that you can go quite broadly out after and search for different type of jobs. And since I was a little bit uncertain what direction I wanted to go in, to start in a consultant firm is really a good way to sort of get yourself going. You start with the other young people. They have a fantastic introduction program. They build culture from day one. And I really learned a lot of things of, say, self-management and how to drive projects during my years in Accenture.
And that time, when did Skuld sort of come up on your radar that you could join them as a business controller? Was that also a coincidence or something you had explored?
Yeah, I sound probably very unplanned now, but it was actually a coincidence that as well, because after a few years in Accenture, I really wanted to maybe focus more on one business, because in Accenture you are jumping from project to project. And to be fair, it was quite a lot of work, not necessarily what I wanted to do rest of my career, to sort of just jump from one thing to the other. Having that said, it was a great time in Accenture. But I really wanted to deep dive into one company, and by coincidence, actually, I saw an ad in a Norwegian paper searching for a business controller in Skuld. And in Accenture, I worked for many businesses, but actually not insurance. So again, a little bit sort of entering into something new that you really don't know, but you want to learn, and that sort of kickstarted the interest on insurance and shipping.
And what was the first impression when you got into the building and saw how, there's a lot of history involved in these types of companies. I mean, your history is like over 100 years already. So what was the first impression when you entered this business and the shipping industry and everything around it?
I must admit, I was a little bit shocked because I came from, a very forward-leaning, modern consultant firm with many young people, and I have been now in Skuld for over 20 years, and a lot has happened in Skuld over these years. But when I came into Skuld, it was a bit old-fashioned still, and you come into this dark meeting room with a lot of paintings on the wall. You have crystal glasses with water, So it was a little bit culture shock to begin with, I must admit. But then, as I said, a lot has happened after that.
I found it interesting to see your career trajectory in Skuld, that you started as a controller, then you started working on the risk side, and then the opportunity arose in becoming the CFO. Was that also a surprise that it went pretty fast to get up into a very top position, or was it also, the right way when you were inside the company, or did those opportunities come a bit as a surprise as well?
That it came that early, I think, was a surprise to me. And I think that's why I've been staying in Skuld for so many years, is that there have always been new opportunities arising. So I worked closely with the former CFO, and he decided to move on. He got a job in an offshore company. And then the previous, or the CEO at that time basically came and asked me if I was willing to run for it. And obviously they did a search process as well. And I decided, well, I felt maybe it was a bit early, but I felt this is a chance you can't say no to, basically. So I just jumped into it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. Like, when do you know if it's the right opportunity at the right time? Because usually it's hard to have the perfect timing all the time. So is it just a judgment based on, okay, here the upside is so big that I sort of have to grab this opportunity? Is it that what it comes down to a lot?
I think so. I think there are some opportunities coming through your life that you might regret if you didn't grasp them or take them. And I think this was one of them. But having that said, I think the timing couldn't be worse than what it was when I became the CFO. I had just met my wife. We were about to get our first child. And the finance crisis broke out. So this was in late 2007, early 2008. And being a young, a bit unexperienced CFO, to sort of get the responsibility for the whole insurance finance portfolio when all markets are crashing, that was quite a tough start, I must admit. But I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a very explosive cocktail of events, but yeah, can you take us a bit back to maybe also paint the picture? Maybe before we go into that sort of crisis, can we also just have an introduction to how this insurance companies work? How is it structured, etc., for people who are not familiar with the industry at all? What are the sort of key components in this kind of business and sector?
Yeah. I probably couldn't speak for many hours on this, but I'll try to keep it very short. Marine insurance is actually one of the oldest insurance businesses in the world. And it started off by ship owners that wanted to come together and share the risk. If something happened with one of their ships, they could actually then all pay in a pool. So they got covered for much bigger amounts than what they would have been able to do on their own balance sheet. So that was how the concept of mutual companies actually started, where the ship owners, being our customer, also became a member of Skuld, and by that have a share of, say, the capital in the company. A lot of things have happened over the years since then. And today, it's far more regulated and also commercially driven. So basically what you need to run an insurance company, it's a lot of capital. You need a strong balance sheet in order to take the risks you are insuring. And then it's a big structure of reinsurance that we buy as an insurance company that enable us to basically cover unlimited, amounts of a cover when things really go wrong.
How would you define the position of Norway versus maybe London, who has maybe the biggest pool of insurance? Like, how does that landscape look like? Has Norway a very good position in this industry, or is it also shared across other countries?
The interesting thing is that Norway is big on all kinds of services around the ship, because we have a long history of ship owners in Norway. And also they moved out of Norway and they expanded and became international companies. But they required, classification, insurance. So that's why Norway is actually one of the biggest service providers to the marine industry. And when it comes to the marine insurance, if you take the Norwegian insurance companies, we are probably covering around 35% of the world market. So we are a big player there. But we are, as I said, also reliant on buying our own reinsurance from other insurance companies. And that is where the London market is by far the biggest market, also through the Lloyd's system. But also the two Norwegian P&I clubs, as we call ourselves, for the liability insurance, we are a member of something called International Group. And that is the 12 clubs that also share risks with each other through a pool. Coming back to the vast amounts that you could end up in a big catastrophe and casualty, we all sort of need to share those risks in able to cover the exposures. So it's a lot of collaboration between us. At the same time, we are competitors.
It's fascinating. It's so complex, and you're also forced to have this collaboration going on, right? So
yes.
If you just look at yourself, I guess one big part of the business model is, how good you are in calculating the risk, and also what are you doing with the liquidity you have available. If you can just, in a broad pencil, give us the insight into how the business model work, and also how do you make sure that you are running this type of company as good as you possibly can, because there are some pitfalls and some risks you will enter regardless.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's crucial to understand the risks we are covering. And over the years, we have collected a lot of data on different type of claims, what really can happen. And we have actuaries and we have analysts that can model for us expected claims based on the risk exposures that we are covering. And then based on that, you can also calculate what is the necessary insurance premium you need to charge for those risks. And then obviously there's an element of luck and bad luck every year. You never know when the big casualties come. So in order to cover also what you really don't expect will happen, but can happen, you need to build up sufficient capital on your balance sheet to cover this. So then you again model, say worst type or worst kind scenarios, the 1 in a 200-year event. And this is really what the authorities, the finance regulators are looking at. Sort of how much capital have you built up against how much risk exposure you take. And based on that, you run an ongoing business so that can cover for this volatility that you can see from year to year in our industry. And then you also have like rating agencies, Standard & Poor, etc., monitoring our business, and they give you a rating so you can check if your insurance company have an A rating or a lower rating, and based on that you can judge yourself what quality the insurance you have consists of.
So if we go by one event, maybe the most recent one and probably a big one was, the Russian invasion on Ukraine. What does that set part in your business? Because of course there's a lot of moving parts here, and you have to take action. And I guess that is sort of a volatile event that has consequences in your operation.
Yeah, it had many consequences for us. Shipping is global, and or not we, but the ship owners, they are transporting cargo around the world. And when the war broke out in Ukraine, a lot of sanctions were imposed on Russia. And this is really something that we had to then assess and see how does the sanctions on Russia affect our portfolio. And before the war started, we were quite big in Russia as well with the Russian ship owners. So the first thing we had to do was actually to then discontinue and take out the Russian part of our insurance portfolio. And then it was all the questions from other ship owners from other countries, what they were allowed to do and not allowed to do based on the sanction regime. But maybe the most dramatic part was with the ships that got stuck outside Ukraine and in Ukrainian ports, which basically ended up being in a war zone and were not allowed to sail. Then it's the war insurance that triggers. And we also offer that. But the most important element at that time was then to secure the crew on the ships. So make sure that the crew could leave the ship and go back home, which was not very easy at all time. And there are many involved in such operations. We don't do everything ourselves, but obviously as an insurer, you are involved and you are paying for a lot of it. But then you still have the ship being stuck, say in a Ukrainian port. And after 12 months, the ship owner can actually declare what we call a constructive total loss on that ship. Basically saying that, okay, I want to get my insurance payment for the value of that ship, and I can leave the ship there and I don't own it anymore. And basically then the insurance company take over the asset, the ship. So in the most extreme scenarios here, we have actually been becoming a ship owner for a very limited period of time before we have been able to sell the ship again, to recover some of the value that we had to pay to the ship owner. So as you can hear, it's a lot of things happening when such a dramatic situation occur.
And is it also a point then that you can be prepared, as you said, you have to, expect, volatile scenarios, but even though if you are prepared, there's still a lot of work to be done once events occur. You can't plan for everything, I guess, regardless how good you are.
That's true. But we learn along the way. And I think that's why I find this industry so fascinating, because it's really a people business where you need experienced people, and we also need young people coming in with new influences, new ideas. But it's a lot about knowledge and knowing how to handle these complicated matters. So this is not easily done by an automated website and just sort of paying out the claims. It's a lot of complicated cases that our claims handlers are dealing with. But that makes it interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe, these examples are a good, part of one side of the equation in an insurance business. And I guess there's also another side of the equation is what you do with the liquidity you have available and the big balance sheet in terms of how you're going to get an interest on that amount as well. And, in the financial markets, there's been some rough sea and waters where it's been hard to get the return back. So can you explain that aspect as well, which I guess is a huge part of your operation as well?
That's true. You basically have two income streams in an insurance company. You have your core business, the insurance premiums, and you pay out claims, but hopefully you have a margin left on the bottom line. And then based on all the capital you need in order to insure the risks you take, you have a balance sheet, and you try to invest that best way possible to get a return on that as well. And if you have a good return there, you can also lower your insurance premiums. So it goes a little bit hand in hand. But when it comes to the balance sheet, it's quite restricted how much risk we can take on our finance or investment portfolios. So you can have a smaller share in equity, but basically a lot of insurance companies are heavily invested in bonds and government bonds in order to reduce the volatility and the risk you take on your investment portfolio. So we need expertise on that side as well. So you have like lawyers and experienced seafarers dealing with the claim side, but then we also have finance people dealing with the investment side.
But I guess it also has been a strange couple of years regarding to the bonds as well, given the bond market situation as well. It's been a hard place to be, as probably not been used to that, but.
No, it's a little bit double negative effect, especially last year, with both the equity markets dropping, but also the bonds due to the increasing interest rates. You get a lower value on your bonds, and that has caused sort of a negative effect on both sides. So it has been really hard to get a positive return, at least last year. But again, then it's coming back to how you mitigate, say, the volatility, how you diversify your investment portfolio. And, it's unrealized losses you have on your balance sheet. You haven't really taken the losses out. So at some point, they should come up again as well. So it is to manage that volatility, which is important.
You run a company now with around 300 employees, over 30 different nationalities. How is it to be the CEO of, such an international organization? How does that work in practice? Do you travel a lot all the time, or trying to engage in a lot of Zoom meetings to keep everybody informed? Or how does it work to run such an international organization?
It's a good question. Obviously, there will be some traveling, and you need to be visible in person as well. But I think we learned a lot through the pandemic that you can do quite a lot on Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, to sort of be close to all the offices around the world. But obviously, with 11 offices around the world, we also delegate quite a lot of responsibility out. So it's not only me doing this. We are 300 people, and they have a lot of independency and, say, authority to make decisions and judgments themselves. So really, my main focus is to build a strong and good and positive company culture. Because it's a lot about teamwork. And then coming back to where I started in Accenture, there we also worked a lot around teams on projects. And it's the same here. You need different skills and different expertise to handle all the matters we do. So my main job is basically to be the oil in this system, and make sure that everything is working and that people are enjoying working in Skuld, feel motivated, and sort of really want to dedicate themselves to the tasks they are given.
Definitely. If you look at your leadership philosophy, do you have any key principles that you try to bring out to the company?
It's coming a little bit back to my hobby. I play the drums. I've been playing in many different bands over the years. Don't have that much time to do it now as I did before, but I try to, I maybe push the employees to listen to me a few times when we have Christmas parties and other gatherings. But when you play in a band with different instruments, it is to find a way to play well together, And I think that philosophy or the way you teach a song when you are playing in a band and want it to sound as good as possible with all the instruments together, it's really something I've taken on board also in my management style and trying to get people to work well together. So if there's anything in sort of in my management way or management style, it is to trust people and to give empowerment. And it's all about trust. Basically, the industry we are driving is about trust. So that is really what I'm focusing on, trust-based leadership.
And also an interesting part, being the CEO is that, of course, you're also responsible in making sure that you're able to recruit, good people and also the next types of talents. And it seems to me from the outside that once people get into school, they tend to stay there for a long time because they like being there, I guess. So what is your advice for people maybe looking for a career or a job? Even, maybe what's the pitch to make them try to join Skuld?
I think it is the international, say, aspect of our business. It makes it very interesting. You meet a lot of exciting, interesting people. It is quite differentiated in what tasks you are given. So no day is the same. I think also that to give authority and give a lot of responsibility to each employee is something many enjoy, and they feel valued. They all contribute to what we are doing. So that is what we are trying to promote and to attract, because we need a lot of people, and the younger generations maybe are not staying as long as they did before. They want to maybe see a few different businesses before they at least decide where to stay for a longer time. So we have seen over the years that we constantly need to attract new people and to educate new people.
And if people come to you asking you for career advice, looking at you and how you have managed to build a great career, what do you typically say to them if they want advice?
Yeah, you heard how I got into this. I'm not sure if I'm the best to give sort of a clear steering on how to get here, but I do think to take the opportunities that comes, and don't be afraid to do so. Be a little bit bold. Take some challenges on. It's tough in the beginning, but over time, I think you get the reward. So yeah, and obviously be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else than who you are.
Definitely. Can you also say what you think it's a great part of being involved in the North shipping community as well? Because you said that we need collaboration, we need to build new partnerships. There are big issues to solve together. So, what do you think are the benefit of being involved in a North shipping event?
I think basically you said it. It is so many industry partners coming together at the conference and all the meetings and events over that week. I think it's a huge benefit for us to learn from each other. We have a massive challenge now with the green shift and the new requirements for emissions coming into the marine industry. I think we all need to come together to learn from each other and to find solutions together. It's very difficult to do it by yourself.
And I guess it's also the case that you also want to be involved in this green shift as well. I saw you did a partnership in Denmark. Maybe you want to discuss a bit that you also want to be a part of this, that you don't want to just wait on the outside, waiting for the new technology, etc. But you want to be a part on it as well, trying to form the industry in that direction.
Yeah, I think for us it's very important that we stay relevant, and we see a lot of industry players now moving into the green industry or the renewable industry. Obviously, we also see a benefit on a broader contribution to society to focus more on sustainability going forward. But being an insurance company, we need to understand the risks we are insuring. And with all the new technology coming in now, we also need to learn that technology to understand how we can insure it in the best way possible. So even though we are not the ones sort of building the technology, we have to understand it.
Very, very cool. Just the last couple of questions, Ståle. What's been your favorite book? Do you have any book you can recommend to the audience?
Well, I thought you were going to ask about the album instead of a book.
Okay, let's do both if you want.
That was a bit surprising question because I'm not a really big book reader. I guess the last book, that's not a very philosophical book. I think that was The Dirt by Mötley Crüe, which is maybe not a book to recommend, actually. But it was a fun book if you like to hear about the 80s rock and roll and the crazy things they did. Album, I could choose many. Where to go? I think anything by Led Zeppelin is. I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. Being a drummer, to listen to John Bonham's drumming, so go there. There's a lot of things to explore there.
And I guess it's not a secret that if people show up to an event like Nordshipping or any Skuld events, they can also probably expect you beating the drums if there's a band to be formed.
If I get the chance, I'll do it. And I think there will be opportunities also during Nordshipping. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. Ståle, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Christopher. It was really good to talk to you.